If you hear a sound like 1,000 fingernails dragging through dry earth at 3 in the morning, run the other way. I didn't. I stood on the edge of that field with my breath fogging in front of me and thought I could make sense of it. Thought I could measure the weird into something explainable. That first mistake is the one I keep replaying. I was there because of the lights. A neighbor had texted a photo, a pale rectangle in the field, blurred and small, like a camera lens trying to cough up a secret. Curiosity is greedy. It tastes like pennies and makes you step over fences at night. The farm road was a ribbon of gravel that chewed my sneakers with every step. The air smelled of crushed grass and old copper, like the inside of a coin purse left under a radiator. Trees hemmed the horizon, black teeth against a darker sky. The only sound besides my heartbeat was an interrupted wind, like someone exhaling through a broken reed. At first, nothing looked wrong. The field rolled in low waves of grass, dew glinting on each blade like a million tiny eyes. My phone buzzed and died, its screen stuttering into static as if the world had decided silence was a better medium than signal. That's when I heard it, a rustle, precise and deliberate, from the tree line to my right. Not the random scatter of a rabbit or a fox. This was a movement with intention, a measured step that matched the cadence of a stalking thing. I froze, the kind of freeze that spreads from your jaw to your fingers and makes your limbs feel like borrowed things. The rustle moved closer, and beneath it, almost inaudible, a wet, patient chuckle settled into the grass. I could taste rust and something colder, old milk gone sour, on the back of my tongue. Then, just past the place where moonlight thinned into shadow, I saw a shape. It was wrong in all the small ways that set your nerves on fire. Long, graceless limbs folded like discarded wires. The ears were too tall, like flags hoisted by something manic. Its skin, if you can call it that, stretched thin over ribs that seemed to count itself with each breath. And the face, a grin carved as if joy had been stolen and sharpened into teeth. Those teeth caught what little light there was and turned it into hunger. There was no motion in its head at first, only eyes that remembered how to be empty. It didn't move like an animal. It moved like an experiment that had been taught the wrong lesson. I should have turned and run, but the field had glued my feet with a curiosity that resembled prayer. Then it cocked its head, just enough to let the moon catch the curve of its smile. That sound, like the last page of a book being torn, drifted across the grass. I realized, with the slow clarity of someone watching a bad dream become geography, that I was no longer the one watching. I had become the watched. It moved with a patience that made patience feel like a crime. Step by slow step, it closed the distance, but not in a straight line, more like a tide rearranging the sand. Every time it paused, the air around it seemed to thin, as if the field itself inhaled. I tried to pull my feet free and found my boots had sunk into the grass, as if into a soft, willing trap. The sky above me stretched the same black fabric, but now it looked stitched, seams picked out by some deliberate hand. The world felt smaller, like a room with the walls inching inward. When it spoke, it did not use words I'd expect. At first, there was only a gurgle, like water trying to remember language. Then, impossibly, it shaped a sound that was familiar, my sister's laugh from a year ago, the exact tilt of her vowels, the small, private cadence that live recordings never capture. My throat closed. I told myself it was my brain playing tricks, pareidolia for the ear. But my sister's laugh stopped being a memory and became a blade. The creature trilled it again, repeating pieces of my life with a sick, observational glee. A grocery store jingle I hummed as a kid, the name of a dog I once loved and then forgot. It had scavenged my past and was feeding it back to me, softer and sharper. Panic made me move. I backed blindly and found tracks behind me that were not mine, long, three-toed impressions like someone had pressed keys into the earth. But in the hollow at the center of each print, my boots had left pieces of my own tread, as though the ground had refused to keep the two of us separate. The field was adulterating memory and geometry. The phone in my hand, when I fumbled it up, showed a photo I had not taken. Me, standing where I stood now, frozen in the frame, eyes hollow and smiling slightly. An image that could not exist unless someone had already been here to photograph me. My heart hammered a rhythm that I recognized as a nursery rhyme. My mouth shaped the words without me meaning to say them. Then a sound from the trees, someone else breathing, closer than the wind. I turned toward human footsteps and caught the sway of a silhouette between trunks. A man, maybe, wearing the shape of a jacket, but with no face to anchor him. Relief was a hot, stupid hope, and it curdled when the faceless figure lifted its hand and mouthed my name. The voice that answered came from behind me, from under the grass, from the creature itself. It repeated my name tenderly, like a promise. The faceless thing began to clap, very softly, and each clap was a little thud that matched the memory of my first kiss, the crack of a car fender, the syllables of my mother's lullaby. I realized then the deeper cruelty. This thing didn't hunt prey for hunger, it hunted for identity. It stitched itself from what people left behind, voices, gestures, discarded loves, and in returning them, it learned how to sound like you. I fumbled for a sentence that would be mine alone, something absurd and private, and yelled it into the dark. The name of a street where I had once been terribly happy and never told anyone. For a moment, there was silence so complete it felt obscene. Then, where the creature's mouth should have been, the smile widened and it whispered that street name back to me, slower, with love. The world folded. My memories became the bait on which I swung. I ran because running felt like a decision I had the right to make. My legs found a terrible speed that was mostly panic, and the field answered with a sound like 1,000 brittle twigs snapping under someone else's shoes. Each step forward left impressions that filled with dark, slow water. When I glanced back, the prints behind me weren't my stride, but a crooked echo of the creature's gait, as if it too were learning to sprint. The trees thinned into roadside shadows, and the gravel of the farm lane cracked under my soles like dry toast. Relief was a close, ridiculous thing, almost touchable. I imagined a porch light, a breath of ordinary life, the rim of civilization. Then a child's voice called my name from a place I had not been for 20 years. The culvert under the old bridge where I'd once left a toy soldier. The voice was perfect. The wrong vowel, the crooked cadence, the private whistle I used to make when I wanted someone to follow. I stopped dead. Every instinct shouted that it was a trap. Every memory of that culvert had been mine alone, until now it wasn't. I tried to outsmart it with noise. I screamed until my throat burned raw, tearing syllables into the night, then spat a string of nonsense so absurd it could not belong to anyone. A sentence I had once thought and thrown away in a supermarket aisle. Silence landed like a hand on my shoulder. It tasted like iron. From the darkness came the same sentence, repeated slowly and lovingly, as if someone were polishing a jewel with my teeth. I reached for the only weapon I could think of, fire. A lighter shivered in my fist, and for a moment flame licked like mercy. The grass caught, and the blaze made the field a world that truly belonged to flame and wind. The creature stepped into the light, and for the first time I saw it as more than mocking bones and fake joy. It was a collage of everything I had trusted. Voices, names, songs, stitched until the stitches showed. The heat should have driven it back, but instead it leaned closer, delight unspooling across its face like smoke. As the fire ate the grass, the photos in my head were crushed like paper. Each memory I had kept, first kiss, the smell of my mother's soup, the exact timbre of my laugh, was being offered up like tinder. I realized with a clarity that felt like frost that the creature didn't merely mimic, it moved into places left empty by forgetting. Every memory I clutched tighter became the place it would set down a foot. I tried to keep something private, something unsayable, but even the unspoken shapes were traced in the ash. The road came back like a question, the farmhouse porch a promise I had already paid for. I made it 2 steps before my name came from inside my own throat, spoken not by me, but through me, making my knees fold and my hands answer the call of the thing that had learned how to be me. The last thing I remember before the world simplified into the pinprick of flame and the sound of foliage collapsing was the sudden, small, human thing, relief. It was a soft, private relief that felt like surrender. It put on my smile.
Subscribe to Horror Story Bar.